It's time for the Access of Easy podcast, the weekly technology digest that keeps you ahead of the curve. Brought to you by EasyDNS.com.
Welcome back, everybody, to Access of Easy, the audio compendium for the weekly newsletter on accessofeasy.com from EasyDNS. My name's Joey. That's Len. This is number 367. Len, a beautiful Thursday night here in Southern Ontario. Football's on soon. I'll be watching.
Yay.
Bills, Dolphins. Big fantasy implications for me in the CBP League. What's going on with you? How are things over there?
Well, I'm going to watch an old Bills Dolphins game, and just in honor of tonight's game, we'll have a good Marino Kelly matchup.
Yeah.
They played a number of times.
Zonka with the fish, OJ for the Bills.
A little too far back for me, but I'll watch it. I mean, let's honor the 74 team. Is it 74 or
72 and undefeated? Was Zonka on that team?
Well, he did play in the team, and that's the only team, if I recall correctly, that's ever gone a complete season undefeated,
including playoffs. Yeah,
correct.
So, Patriots did 16-0 in 08, but lost to the Giants famously. Yeah, Eli.
Hey, it's tough to do, but they did it back then.
Yeah, that's a beast team. I do like every year the video of the Dolphins, the remaining living 72 Dolphins popping champagne when the last undefeated team loses during the season. So it's good. Anyway, last week's quote from number 366: "Birds born in cages think flying is an illness." That was from Alejandro Jodorowsky. Bill got it right. So shout out to you, Bill. Nice job there. This week's quote. This is a good one. "The real tax is society forcing otherwise productive people to pay attention to politics." God, I love that. If you know who that was by, put it in the comments. Get your next round of renewals on EasyDNS. No cheating. Don't look it up. Encarta Encyclopedia only, or whatever you have on your bookshelf. But no Googling. Not that Google will give you the right answer anyway. It'll give you the politically correct answer. No guarantees on correct.
You have to make a politically correct or non-politically correct Google. There's got to be one, version that gives us the answer that we're asking for. I don't know. Can we make it? Are we able to? I'm just trying to adjust this new monitor. I'm still.
How hard can it be? I don't know. Is it easy to do something like that?
How many trillion do we have sitting on this side?
Quite a few trillion. Yeah, quite a few trillion.
Let's do it. Let's liquidate our Bitcoin. Anyways, let's talk about what's the stories here, because there's 5, right? We're gonna go with 5 stories.
We're gonna go with 5.
Yeah, why not? So, like the first story, we'll talk about Malaysia. What's going on over there? We've never talked about Malaysia in this show before. In fact, even in our show, I don't think we've ever mentioned it. Either way, they're blocking global DNS resolvers. And so what that means is that the country of Malaysia, they're trying to tighten the noose for controlling information that's found on the internet. And this is in an attempt for dealing what they say harmful content. All this starts from the Malaysian Communications and Multimedia Commission, the MCMC. So they decided to put a block on any DNS resolver that is not Malaysian based. So that means anyone using the internet over there will need to edit their DNS server to one of the government approved list. So the popular servers, DNS servers like Google or AK 8.8.8.8 won't be able to be used by any domestic internet users to resolve domain names. And I guess people could still use IP addresses as a way to get around that restriction, but they're going to run into massive barriers because many links on websites and stuff like that include domain names. So then the page itself or any applications that require DNS names, they're simply going to be broken. So it's going to cause them issues. But I guess, people could get around this using VPNs, but I guess that would raise suspicion, because if the authorities start digging around how many people are evading the the DNS block, and if using something like a VPN, it's probably going to raise suspicion to probably go after those people. But then another option is you could potentially run your own DNS resolver. But again, I'm wondering if you do that, if authorities can somehow figure out stuff that see where traffic is going to websites that they have initially deemed to be verboten, because if you use one of their domestic DNSs, you wouldn't be able to route traffic there. So if they figure out there's traffic going to these websites, they're going to put 2 and 2 together, just figure out the packets, where they're coming from, where they're going to. And yeah, because they have probably their thumb on the finger of all the ISPs in Malaysia. But all of this is in the name of blocking harmful content. And again,
I love it. I absolutely love it.
That's really, and it's really sad, because a lot of people rely on this stuff, and a lot of people, their applications, their phone, their computer, whatever, they just automatically pick the DNS that's been assigned to them, and it's usually one that is the default from the ISP. So they're going to be left out in the cold, not able to see anything. Now, Mark put if you want a little bit more information about this, Mark put a whiteboard video on explaining the situation. So the technicalities of this, you could check it out, Mark from Easy DNS, and there is a YouTube link. So check that out. I recommend doing so. But in the end, this is pretty sad stuff. And I never thought of anybody doing it before. I suppose it has been done in like North Korea and China, but man, if this spreads like wildfire, this could be a real problem for a lot of internet users.
The evasive mechanism is not that complicated. I watched a bit of Mark's video. Actually, I still have it open, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. He calls it a whiteboard video. I call it a graph paper video because of all the whiteboards he's chosen to use graph paper, a facsimile of graph paper, which made me laugh. But there's options here for a bunch of different things, right? There's some stuff you can do that's available to you on Reddit. And then Mark's video goes into some additional detail. It's only about 10 minutes long about how to get around these things and the mechanism through which they're being enforced. So, I'm not going to add anything to the technical side because, plain and simple, I can't. It's above my head. But I will say that, man, Len, this is a new country. It's first time on Axis of Easy. And what are we talking about? Censorship, blocking, and, just sort of broad communication restrictions for average people. Not good. That is not a good first impression, as they say. You do not want to make that kind of first impression with your date or your date's parents. I will tell you that.
Well, do you think that they're going to be the first time we're going to talk about them is how open and honest everything is over there? Like, it's going to be obviously a story that's going to be we'll be talking about is
Bastion of Freedom, Malaysia, to be congratulated and recognized. Yeah,
great weather, and you can search anything on the internet over there. You will have no restrictions.
If you don't like your Asia, you could try Malaysia instead.
YubiKey 5 users.
This is a nut story. These physical, like, this was supposed to be such a secure platform, and obviously,
it probably still. I mean, it's not a piece of junk.
No.
Because
there's worse. There's worse.
I think so. I mean, Google Titan, for instance, their chips, they've been attacked. And let's get into this one. This is the YubiKey 5, and for those wondering what this is, it's a physical 2FA device. Right? Like, everybody, I hope, understands what the software version of this is, the physical version of that. And researchers, they have done their homework, and they figured out that these devices, they're vulnerable to cloning due to a cryptographic flaw. And so, okay, what does this mean? So the flaw is that due to the hardware, specifically 3 microcontrollers, which are found on the device, that's the problem. As a result, there's not a patch that can be released to correct the problem. The problem is just always going to be there as long as these specific 3 microcontrollers exist. And it may not just be YubiKey 5 that simply have these 3 microcontrollers. It could be other devices too, or even other YubiKey devices. The researchers haven't gone down that path just yet. But the only saving grace here is that the attacker needs physical access to the device to gain access to the key stored on it. And even then, it's possible that the hacker will also need even more information, like a username, a PIN, account, password, authentication key, and so forth. So then, more so, they need some very expensive specialized hardware equipment to make the attack successful. Now, maybe over time, that specialized and expensive equipment may become cheaper, and through efficiencies, things all should become cheaper over time. So maybe the same will happen here. But either way, the key I have to stress is you need physical access to this, right? Like,
it's not quick either. It's not quick. They mentioned
hours,
the
10 hours.
They mentioned it's similar to the Titan attack, which is a 10-hour exposure period. That's a long time.
So what I'm trying to get at is any device, this is my opinion, I could be way off base, but any device you have that you deem to be secure, with enough time and effort, if you have the device, it could be hacked. Apple, their device, remember when there was that shooter, it was a San Bernardino, something like that, and they ended up trying to break into the phone. It did take months maybe for them to happen, but they ended up breaking into it. Apple said they were unable to provide a backdoor key because one didn't exist. And so they, I think an Israeli company was the one that helped the authorities get into it.
Good memory. Yeah.
So what I'm trying to get at is anything, as long as you have physical access to it, they're going to be able to get into it. It will take time. It will take money. It will take a lot of effort to do it, but it's possible. So I'm not trying to say this YubiKey 5 is simply getting a pass. I'm just trying to say, be careful with your physical device. Make sure you store it properly in a nice, secure location, wherever that may be. But that applies to just about everything. Now, the phones is a little bit different. You have to carry that on you. I would suggest don't keep anything sensitive on there. That's just my personal opinion. So that with respect to the YubiKey 5, it sucks for those users, but let's not say this is you should be slitting your wrist. This is the end of the world for you. If you're not going to give up the device, you're going to hide it somewhere. You're still going to be okay. Maybe find alternatives. Maybe do an MFA or M2A type of thing. But yeah, that's just my opinion on this.
I think there's one other thing to note. That was a great summary from you, and a couple of important points there. One, the physical access to the sort of value, right? 11 grand US presumably worth of equipment. Interesting note from the Ars Technica staff. There's a list in the article. You can go to the Access of Easy website and look at these articles for yourself, of course. A 6-step process that outlines the method to exploit this vulnerability. I want to read you something from the article, though. The article is from Ninja Lab, which is the group that was able to pull off the attack. Ars Technica points out that, quote, the list, however, omits a key step, which is tearing down the YubiKey and exposing the logic board housed inside. This likely would be done by using a hot air gun and a scalpel to remove the plastic casing, key casing, and expose the part of the logic board that acts as a secure element storing the cryptographic secrets. From there, an attacker would connect the chip to hardware and software that take measurements as the key is being used to authenticate an existing account. Once the measurement taking is finished, the attacker would seal the chip in a new casing and return it to the victim. That's a lot of work. Mm-hmm. Okay, we're not talking about stuff you can sneak in like your pocket, okay? You need a hot air gun. You need to have enough finesse that you don't destroy the hardware in that process, which is probably difficult in its own right. And then you're talking about scalpels. So you need surgical precision, right? This is some mixture of, kind of carpentry and pizza making, getting this thing open, closed, and back to the person. And by the way, Len, that's if the person doesn't realize that the housing has been tampered with, which is a whole other story not mentioned in the article. So yeah, more secure than you might think. But as you pointed out, you just don't want to have these things available to other people. Presumably, actually, I don't use YubiKeys. I think they offer them for pretty cheap on Amazon. And there's like a whole kind of ecosystem associated with these things. I don't know, if you needed this much security for something that you ended up with a YubiKey, wouldn't the logical next step just to be that you made it difficult to access, period, like with or without a YubiKey? You take one step further than that. Anything that needs frequent enough access that you have to carry this thing on you probably should be easier than this. And anything that needs less frequent access, you would not use this tool in any case, right? It feels like this is not really in the Goldilocks zone, so to speak.
It kind of makes me think that people would be using this, or the same people who would be using Ledger, right? Like it's
strays,
wearing a Ledger
catching strays,
right? Like you remember the apparel that you could buy from
Ledger? Oh yeah,
so it's kind of
the bucket hat, so brutal.
So I don't want to make this a Ledger story, but I'm just trying to paint a picture the similarities between a Ledger user and maybe one of these users. But I don't know. Like you say, but don't make it easy.
Like it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me to have one of these physical devices. I don't know. If you're that worried, like the physical device doesn't help you really. It helps the attacker. You would want to do something else. Like you'd want to find some other way to secure that information or that hardware. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just out to lunch on that. Should we buy YubiKeys and mess around with them? They've been stories a few times. I don't know. What would I secure with my YubiKey? My football preparation secrets.
The people who try to jump through out of windows and stuff to try to get that information. So
really,
I don't know. Aren't your you talk about physical, like real football or fantasy football?
Real football.
I don't know. Maybe your opponents are going to be like
my 5-on-5 playbook is coveted by so many other beer league teams.
Do people study it? Do you bring it around?
Listen, I know for a fact this is off the beaten path. There's a team in our league that films games. And I know for a fact that at least one other team has watched the game against us to see the stuff that we run. We run a lot of pre-snap motion and we run a lot of option stuff. It's fun, but it's hard to pick up. You need more than the tape for sure.
Who brings the footballs? Is it just
each team has their own balls?
Are you going to deflate the footballs beforehand?
My balls are not inflated to 13 psi. I'll tell you that. That's the suggested. They are for sure closer to 9 or 10.
We're gonna edit that out because we don't have to have any damning evidence here. It's up to the opponents to figure this out, right?
I love it. I love it. Listen, I could talk about football prep all day. I actually started a channel. This is way off the beaten path. I'm sorry, Mark and audience. I started a channel on YouTube because when I was looking for a ball last year to start playing quarterback, I didn't know what ball to buy. And there's no comparison videos online. There's no like side by side. And also my hands are not that big. I got like these kind of short fingers. And so I wanted a ball that I could hold. And there's all sorts of options. When you come to the studio, Len, I'll show you. Yeah, so I made like a bunch of videos on all the balls and people seem to like them. I've been giving a lot of suggestions. When you eventually make it to my house, behind the camera, there's 8 footballs. Total value gotta be, it's a lot, but it was worth it. I kind of enjoyed the break-in process and seeing all these things kind of go from new to usable. But anyway, I started making these videos because there's so much that goes into prepping these things and how they feel in your hand, the different leathers, the laces.
For sure,
yeah. You know that now, you know the CFL balls have the white stripe along the entire outside of the ball.
Yes.
So the college balls in the States don't. You know what the colleges in the States do now? Instead of just painting the stripe on, Len, it's like a sewn composite material that adds extra grip, the white stripe. So the ball is like a soft leather, and then you get like a composite stripe on the ball. Does
that change the weight of it a little bit?
It doesn't. The weights are all in the middle of the ball now. The outside of the ball, from the laces to the tip, the angle is so steep because quarterbacks want to get their full hand on the ball.
So there's very little material on the outside. All of it's in the middle. It's making the mass is there.
It's cool. Okay. It's really, the balls have come a long way since I was a kid for sure. But anyway, story for another time.
You ever use the K-ball to throw?
A K-ball? What's that?
The kicking ball?
I don't have any K-balls. There's a website called Team Issue in the States or Big Game USA that will sell you K-balls. But
are they called K-balls? I heard
they are. They're just like, they're balls that have like either blemishes or problems with like the laces or stuff like that. There's a couple of good K-balls. Like the Adidas Dime makes a throwing ball, like a game ball, and a K-ball too. The K-balls are hard to find because the leather's apparently so good that people just buy them up all over the place. On eBay, they're like $400 game ready.
You ever hear of people putting them in the freezer? Like, this is from what I heard for professional games, and I think it was kickers like them in the freezer for some reason.
I don't know.
Maybe it could be wrong.
The kicking balls are inflated super close to like popping, and they just sail. Like we have a kicking ball even for our beer league team, and it's super inflated.
Check out Isaac Punts. I think that's the guy's name on YouTube. He's a great channel about punting, and he analyzes professional punting games, like the actual. Like, we're going really into the deep end here.
Anyone still really there? Cool. Anyone still listening to this?
I know it's Isaac Punts. Check it out. You for sure, Joey. You will like it.
I will check it out for sure. I didn't know about that channel.
I think that's his name, Isaac Punts. But yeah, like he does a play and he shows that it's incredible. Like, yeah, there was one play that no, we're really going.
Skip. We'll talk about this after.
We'll talk So we'll talk about the Python package index, PyPI, and
it's like it's like PayPal almost, right? But it's actually PI, not PL on the end. I think
this is the second time we've talked about this. I think the story is a repeat story. I could be wrong.
Oh, okay.
It rings a bell, and either way, this is the Python package index, and attackers have been finding a new way to distribute their malware through this, and they are doing it by disguising the malicious code as legitimate software. And this is a variation of a well-known typo squatting attack. I don't think we've ever talked this typo squatting.
Yeah, it's new to me. Yeah,
and where attackers register names, domain names legitimate similar to legitimate ones, to trick users into visiting these malicious websites, but they could somehow inject these variations into package names into these package indexes, and it's difficult to detect. And additionally, attackers can exploit the reuse of abandoned package names to bypass security measures that rely on known malicious packages. So anybody that uses these package managers, and in Linux they're used heavily, so you can understand how this could be a real problem if somebody were to inject something that's wrong. So something called JFrog, that's a software supply chain security company. They discovered this new technique and analyzed the potential impact, and they found that a number of packages in PyPI could be affected. as many abandoned packages have not been repurposed or removed. That's a big no-no. So somebody's going to have to go through this line by line and ensure that the stuff that shouldn't be there and is old and outdated should be removed so that you don't go through this attack. But they're also recommending that organizations implement some robust security software supply chains security practices, such as including code scanning, dependency analysis, and vulnerability management. If anybody is doing anything with updating software using these packages, it's up to them too to go through this. So it isn't really a huge thing, but the attack vector exists. And there's a lot of Python users out there. The amount of people that are using and onboarding into Python grows by the day. It's one of the more popular programming languages out there. And so I would suggest people out there, be very careful. You might think you're going to be okay because you're just snagging stuff from the Python package index, but you never know. There still might be something in there, some malicious code that could eventually screw you up in the end.
How have they not been able to stop this?
It's just fair. I don't want to say laziness, but it's just things go old over time, and they don't delegate responsibilities properly, and people just accept things at face value. Stuff that is community driven, and this is kind of a community driven. Endeavor.
Okay. So I want to hop in there. When I hear you talk about community driven projects, I hear two things. I hear that they're going to be more reliably secure sometimes, or more reliably anti-surveillance and things like that, like in that ethos. But the other thing I hear is that people take pride in the work that the community does. Like I look at Linux and stuff like that, especially like the Ubuntu flavors and whatnot, and there's like Mint and like all these distros are maintained meticulously, and I have a hard time understanding why this is not maintained with the same rigor, or reviewed and kept an eye on with the same rigor that something like a Linux distro would be. This is arguably more important, though, I will admit not quite as broadly user-facing. It just seems to me like the risk here is so much greater, and it would carry reputational damage for that community too. Like it's I don't understand that. Do you have an opinion on that or anything?
No, you're making a great point, and I don't know why does this exist there in the Python community, but not in Linux. I would suggest maybe it does exist in Linux, but they're just actively going about to remove this, and they've assigned these tasks to people, and people just like, I know that the flavor that I use is Debian. That's the one of the oldest Linux distros out there, and just about more than half of them derive from Debian. So if you use like a Ubuntu or something along those lines, it comes from Debian. So if you're using, there's a lineage here. So if you're going to update the package managers of other ones, you're probably going to go back and update the ones in Debian as well. So right. Okay. I don't know. I just don't. I think maybe there's just more of a privacy notion and idea when dealing with Linux versus Python, which is simply a programming language. I'm not trying to dismiss it for the users themselves, but I think it's just drawing from a different type of individual.
It's too bad. It is too bad, because this is going to be, see that's going to be a story in a month or 2 months, right? Someone gets got by one of these typo squatting, two zeros instead of 2 O's type things, and we're going to say, oh, be careful. But really, that's only half of the solution. The other half is that the community needs to be more vigilant, right? Not assume that everyone knows everything. I don't know. There's something to be said there. I'm not sure exactly what, but there's some shared blame for that story coming 2 months from now.
This is a situation where I think somebody could program "quote unquote" an AI to scrape this.
Oh, maybe, yeah, good point.
And because I think just going by
forget AI, it's a script, right? Can you not just script something like this and go through the? Yeah,
I would imagine so. I mean, to try to find some things that appear wrong, like as you're mentioning, adding an extra O or a zero instead of an O, like stuff like that, and the domain names that just don't really seem right. I don't know. Maybe you can employ something like very fancy script or "quote unquote" AI to do it.
Hard to say. Whatever. Yeah, hard to say.
WhatsApp. Well, there's a major privacy breach perhaps over here, because the apps.
Another one. Who
the heck uses WhatsApp? I don't. Do you still use it? I know you may have used it once upon a time.
My family chat is in a WhatsApp chat. So,
oh man, I'm surprised you haven't migrated to this.
It's not worth the fight. There's nothing sensitive in there anyways, but you know.
But it doesn't matter. Like Signal, here you go. Here's and it's.
You know what kind of fight that? You know what kind of fight that's gonna be? My dad has an iPhone 7, Len. It's like,
good for him for
I know. Yeah, he needs, you know, glasses to look at every letter. He's got the font set to maximum. It's like 1 letter per page. God bless him. God bless him.
Anyway, so WhatsApp, their quote unquote view once. This is a feature they have. It's designed to ensure that photos and videos are only viewed one time by the recipient. Well,
yet another feature stolen from Snapchat, by the way, by Facebook. Just want to point that out.
This isn't everything though. Signal
Snapchat had it first. This was the backbone of the Snapchat app.
They should have registered it somehow, and so everybody pay a nickel when this is used. But either way, there's a vulnerability in the WhatsApp version of this, and the bug allows for users to save these messages to the end user, defeating the intended privacy protection. So the bug was first discovered when users reported being able to save the view once message, which shouldn't be the case. And this totally contradicts the purpose of the feature. And, you know, people should be using this. I mean, potentially can be using this as a way to share sensitive or temporary content. But yeah, so security and privacy practices from WhatsApp, they're not too good. So Meta acknowledged the bug, and they promptly announced they were working on a fix. And they assured users that privacy was top priority, and they're taking steps to address this vulnerability. All this really shows, for people that are using WhatsApp out there, it's just another reason why you wouldn't want to use this for any sensitive information. Even if you're using this view once feature, it really isn't going to be all that secure in the end. Even if it did work, to be perfectly honest, even if it did happen to work to view once, there's nothing stopping the individual from, say, displaying the phone to a camera like I'm doing as such and taking a picture of that. And that is going to be always...
That's a minimum risk, yeah.
So do what you want, but using this as a way to get around stuff, and it does nothing. If you want to do it old-fashioned, show somebody some paper, then burn it at the end. Do it like the old James Bond style, and then this message will self-destruct. So yeah, what are your thoughts?
So I can remember a time, maybe in 2024 now, probably 2017. I had an iPhone 6 or 7 at the time, and I was a big jailbreak guy back then. And one of the key features of the jailbroken phones was that you could download, you could sideload apps from Cydia, which you may know of or not know of, this like jailbreak app store. And one of the big apps, the most popular apps, was this thing that let you save view once photos and let you view the photo multiple times. So what it did was basically stop the app from registering that you had been in it. And so Snapchat and WhatsApp actually use the feature similar ways. In Snapchat, it'll tell you when the photo's been viewed and who it was viewed by. And then in WhatsApp, I presume it's about the same. The big thing is that in both apps, screenshots are disabled. Your phone will not take a screenshot. It won't save it. Screen recording also disabled. And the usual like forwarding, saving in-app kind of stuff is all disabled. But the jailbreak used to let you get around it. So I am not surprised to see that the technology has kept up with the apps 7 years later. The number of things, Len, in the gossip world, the celebrity world, and there's other reasons you'd want to save Snapchats. Let your imagination wander there if you want, listener, viewer. But there is always going to be a demand for a product like this. And I would suggest to you that much like cockroaches, this is not the only vulnerability in this view once feature. There are probably many others that are not being disclosed vis-a-vis sideloaded apps or other kind of suspect hacks, let's say, or tweaks, as the Cydia community calls them. So I think that there's probably a lot more of this going on. And this doesn't even mention the Snapchat side. Snapchat does something very similar to this. Like I mentioned, they're the sort of OGs of the view once photo, view once video. I am positive it's still happening there too. And this is why I never send, you shouldn't be sending pictures of your dangly parts to anyone anyways, but I suspect,
Brett Favre.
if you're Favre and there's a, good looking Latina sideline reporter, you just can't resist, maybe you take your shot. I mean, Favre does like to throw across his body down the field. So I think this is like less risky than some of the passes he's thrown over his career, but you can't be doing it because at minimum they're showing it to their friends, and in the worst case scenario, they're saving it. And what you can't have is, garnering any kind of notoriety or applying for a job, or God forbid, like you get a jilted ex-girlfriend or something. Am I speaking from experience? I don't know. And you'll never know either, listener, viewer, but
it's all hypothetical.
You just can't risk it. You can't risk that those pictures floating around. Right.
Yeah.
And I think for guys your age, even my age, it's not that big a deal, but man, there was like a 10-year period after I was a Snapchatter and a one-time view photo type where everybody was using those platforms. And God, I could just imagine the TMZ treasure trove, on some server in San Bernardino. Everyone's dick is on there. Excuse my French, but that's probably it's probably the case, right? These services are not secure. And you point out the WhatsApp in general is not secure anyways. It's just you are asking for trouble doing something like this, in my opinion.
If you're gonna if you really want to do like that kind of stuff, like do the Shannon Sharp route where you're at least pointing this to a floor, right? Like there's nothing.
Wow, that is a current reference. There's a roast to Shannon Sharp tonight at 8:30. I think I'm pretty sure Ocho Cinco's hosting it on Twitter.
Is he roasting Ocho Cinco or
no?
is it the reverse?
Ocho's roasting Shannon Sharp.
What does he have to get roasted for?
They do a show together.
Why does he have to get roasted?
What do you mean? It's great. It's so funny. People who don't know,
like he's enjoying himself.
Look it up, but don't use your work computer.
Well, hell yeah. Cisco, they're issuing a warning about a critical vulnerability in their smart licensing utility. And this vulnerability could be exploited by attackers to gain unauthorized access to network devices. Obviously, that's a massive security risk. And so this is a Windows application that helps manage licenses and linked products on premises without connecting them to Cisco cloud-based smart software manager solutions. So that's essentially what it is. And I copied that straight from the website. So I'm not sugarcoating or trying to put my own flavor on that. So this vulnerability is a result of hard-coded administration account that is present on the smart licensing utility. And the account has full administrative privileges. So it allows the attackers to remotely access and control network devices. Really, you can understand that this is going to have a real problem with a lot of Cisco products like routers, switches, and firewalls. So they have released a software update to address the vulnerability to their credit. If you have something like this and you're just wondering, I would suggest troll the website, see if there's an update that has to be applied. Apply that update, and you should be protected. And hopefully there's no more holes moving forward. But if you are using it and you're not going to make any changes and not updating it, shame on you.
Not much to add. Do your diligence, man. Update your stuff and keep an eye on websites like Bleeping Computer for problems with your admin rights and whatever else is going on with these things. Yeah. Cisco's not in the news often, not on the show too often, which is good. That's a widely used hardware and I think software as well provider. So
we're taking it by Bitcoin no, it's Oracle. My bad.
Oracle, yeah. Oracle, by the way, up like 60% this year. So even without Bitcoin, they're doing well. I mean, everything is doing well.
See, they'd be up 120% if they bought
gold almost $25.60 an ounce.
All right. So there's some central bank buying that.
It's got to be, right? Got to be.
It's not just in retail. It's stocking.
It isn't. Gold. It isn't all the Italians buying Cuban link chains. I'll tell you that.
Could be Indians. Indians love gold.
A lot of Indian weddings, you think?
Yeah, a lot of it is just like passed around, but maybe they're trying to bring in some new stock in the country. So maybe could be.
We gotta find out
some wealthy Indians.
Come back on Monday for more gold talk. This has been Axis of Easy. If you're interested in the rest of the stories, you should be. Latest and greatest in data breaching and overreaching, as we like to say on this program. accessoveasy.com. Read the newsletter, and don't forget to sign up as well. Simple email. I think you get a discount on the Easy DNS stuff too if you sign up with your email, which is great. Anyway, good to talk to you. Take care of yourselves till next time. And don't do anything I wouldn't do.
But do like Shannon does.